Time now for campus craziness, and in that category, no school comes close to matching Evergreen College in Washington State. You've been in a coma for the last month. Here are the basics. Student activists sought to kick all white people off campus for an entire day. Brett Weinstein, who's a biology professor there and a self-described progressive, refused to leave. He said that was wrong. He was subsequently harassed by a mob howling for his job. Instead of sticking up for their colleague, meanwhile, dozens of Evergreen professors have called for Weinstein to leave, calling him the villain, demanding he be investigated. Professor Weinstein has relocated his family for their safety, but he joins us now, and we're grateful he has. Professor, thanks for coming on. So,
thanks for inviting me back, Tucker.
You're no longer on the campus of Evergreen. Why?
Well, the college has never acknowledged the danger that they put us in, and therefore I have no way of knowing whether it's safe for me to return. Their assurances that it is safe don't mean anything, not that they've offered them.
Not that they've offered them. No, it seems to me, and you and I have talked before, I doubt we share the same politics at all, but this seems a pretty cut and dried case of the defense of free expression. You had a point of view, and your right to have that ought to be sacrosanct, and I wonder, you know, how many of your colleagues or others in academia have supported you in that?
Well, I've received tremendous support outside of the college, and I've received quite a bit of support privately within the college, but publicly, only one other professor has come forward to say he supports my position.
And what is your position, if you could sum it up for us?
Well, the issue is complicated. Let me start by just simply pointing out the protest of my class occurred because I sent an email to the staff and faculty email list protesting what we call day of absence. In this case, day of absence was being reversed by the organizing committee, and white people were asked to leave the campus. It was not that we were forced to leave, but we were asked to leave, and it was made very clear that leaving was an act of allyship with people of color, and therefore not leaving, if you were white, meant that you were not an ally.
And you refused to leave.
I did refuse to leave, and I sent a letter. I think it was very carefully stated, but it said that there was a tremendous difference between a population absenting themselves from a shared space and a population deciding to absent other people from that same space, and that on a college campus, people should be equally free to be on campus irrespective of their skin color.
Exactly. Amen, which I thought was sort of a basic precept of American life. Do you plan to go back to Evergreen?
Well, I certainly have duties to finish this year, and I have no alternative employment, so my expectation is that I will have to go back. That said, it's not exactly clear how I can go back to a campus where the administration and the faculty have invested so heavily in demonizing me. At first, they demonized me as a racist, and as it became clear that that was not resonating with people, they shifted their critique, and in fact have blamed my last appearance on your program for everything that has occurred at Evergreen since. I don't know how I can go back and teach, given that I have been portrayed as the reason that Evergreen is in crisis.
It's just grotesque. And for the record, of course, all of this happened before you came on our show. We asked you on because we saw it unfolding. I really hope a college, any college, who wants a professor or principal will call you right after this appearance tonight. Professor, thanks for coming on.
Thanks very much.
Well, Evergreen is just the most recent and the most obviously egregious case of the left trying to enforce absolute ideological conformity on campus. Now, some lawmakers are taking affirmative steps to protect the First Amendment. In 10 states, bills have been introduced or passed to protect freedom of speech on campus or to punish students who attempt to suppress the right of others to speak freely. Seems relatively non-controversial. Scott Ross, though, was the director of One Wisconsin Now. He opposes these laws, and he joins us. Scott, I don't know if you saw the interview we just did, but it was with a self-described progressive on the campus of Evergreen who has been physically threatened because he has a different view. And this kind of thing is happening on a bunch of campuses, and I would think that sincere liberals would be upset about it and would be trying to fix it, but they're not. Why?
Well, Tucker, first of all, thank you for having me. And there is nobody who should defend violence or threats or disorderly conduct, but I don't think that the bill we're seeing, particularly here in the state of Wisconsin, meets any of those thresholds. What's happening is we have a coordinated effort to try and suppress free speech by government on University of Wisconsin campuses to intimidate students, faculty, and administrators from discussing critically important issues facing the public policy debate.
I don't know who writes your talking points. I mean, do you live in this country? Are you watching what's happening on college campuses? I mean, a lot of them, not just Evergreen and Berkeley, but lots of campuses where people stand up and they're like, I disagree, and they're shouted down and people threaten them. That's a real thing. That's not a creation of this show or Fox News or the right. I mean, that's totally real. Why aren't you upset about it?
Well, what I think is this, is that we have in the legislation here in the state of Wisconsin a potential solution that is infinitely worse than the alleged problem. You have the hand of government coming in trying to intimidate people from speaking out on campus. Now, listen. Our college campuses have multiple jurisdictions of law enforcement. Here in Wisconsin, you've got Capitol Police, you've got City Police, you've got Campus Police. If somebody crosses the line into disorderly conduct, they can be prosecuted and detained by trained law enforcement officials. This bill is not that. This bill is providing some sort of safe space where people can't have an honest and frank debate about really important issues.
They can't have them now in case after case. And again, I know that, people try to dismiss this as something, that demagogues are ginning up to get right-wingers exercise, but that is demonstrably not true. We do this every week. It's totally real. People who can't speak on campus because they have a divergent view from the majority, and I thought the whole point of being a liberal was to defend people like that. Where have you been when this is going on? What have you done to defend free speech?
Tucker, I have stood with conservatives and Republicans in fighting for free speech rights here in the state of Wisconsin. That is a certainty. But what I would say is this regarding this particular piece of legislation, and I can only speak for Wisconsin, where not one single conservative speaker who has come on campus has been prevented from being able to deliver their remarks in full. And so I think that's the thing that we have to remember here, is that once you create that chilling environment where people are afraid to speak out, that's where you don't have the opportunity to listen to each other,
it's almost like
find
you're
out what the decision.
Do you have kids in school? Because I've got 4 of them. And you talk to any of them or their friends or anybody who's in college right now, and they're like, look, I don't want to give my opinion because I'm going to be penalized. Anyone who's not in a very specific narrow band of progressive thought is hurt. That's totally, I mean, are you not aware of this?
I think that threatening anybody with violence or intimidating them is a terrible thing that should be prosecuted. What I don't like is the government, big government, coming in and writing laws that tell people they can and cannot speak on campus, and that is what this legislation is here in the state of Wisconsin.
This is already government. What do you think UC Berkeley is?
No.
What do you think Madison is? These are government schools, and the government is doing literally nothing to protect the rights of the minority. And again, this ought to be something that you're like waking up mad about every day. Where are liberals? Are there any left?
The University of Wisconsin is protecting free speech rights. Every speaker who has come to a University of Wisconsin campus, even provocateurs who have things to say that I would definitely disagree with, have been able to deliver all their remarks, Tucker. It hasn't happened here. That's the problem.
Do you believe that a student in a poli-sci class at the University of Wisconsin-Madison could say to his professor, I'm for Donald Trump, and expect that his grade would not be affected by that? Honestly, look at me right in the face and say, yeah, no problem.
Absolutely. That's ridiculous. But what I will say is this.
Wait. You're
we
saying
got the
that
records for the creation of this bill here in the state of Wisconsin.
Wait, hold on.
And what we found was that they had originally wanted the Republican Attorney General to be involved in the prosecution and oversight of this, and he flat out refused, and they had to take him off the bill.
I don't care what your Republican Attorney General
thinks this is a step over the line, then the legislators should think the same.
Some Republican disagrees with me. That means nothing to me. Where are the elected officials saying we're taking an absolutist position on the First Amendment? You should not have your rights abridged as enumerated in the Bill of Rights. The first one is a right to say what you think is true. Where are the politicians standing up for that? I don't see any on the left. Do you?
I would have to disagree with you strongly on that, Tucker, because, by allowing people to have that expression, the government isn't getting in the way of free speech. I mean, once the government comes in and tells you or I what we can and cannot say, that's where we cross the line into oppressing the First Amendment.
But that's
Only government can stop the First Amendment.
That's happening right now. I mean, that's happening. If Milo Yiannopoulos can't give a speech at UC Berkeley, a government school, then the government is complicit in his First Amendment rights being taken away, no?
Well, I would agree that you've given me a handful of examples that have happened around the nation.
I've got like a huge. I mean, I can bore you. My viewers are very familiar with them because we talk about it all the time because we're not a liberal show because we believe in the First Amendment.
I can't speak to that. I can tell you what goes on in the state of Wisconsin, which is we are allowed to speak on campuses. The Republicans want to stop that. And, you know, again, the Attorney General opposes the idea. And actually, the author of the bill himself, one of the Republican state representatives, was on public radio, was asked about the constitutionality of it, and he said he agreed that there were constitutional problems with this particular piece of legislation.
Someone's got to stand up for
That's why we're trying to stop it here in the state of Wisconsin. We do hope some of the Republicans will join us in this and stop it from happening.
Thanks for joining us.